last day before the second rest day is 181.5 relentless kilometres through the departments of Aveyron, Tarn and Aude. The climbing starts at 6 kilometres and never stops, really. The intermediate sprint is at 121.5, and if Peter Sagan is in the break to claim that, then the entire race should stop, applaud and hand him the green jersey in perpetuity.
On these flat roads now with just over 15 kilometres to go, almost accepting the inevitable as a big and powerfully constituted and well-drilled chase group battering these, riding through these battering headwinds and crosswinds close to within touching distance of Rafa Majka. It's over for him. If he's kept something back, he might just still be a part of this shake-up.
15 kilometres to go, so this group is still riding very well. I mean, I'm surprised by how harmonious they've been. It's they're all believing they're going to get something out of this, and hence why they're working so well together. Even Carcassonne, who's isolated compared to the three pairs of teammates. At least he's now got an ally of sorts in Majka, who as well is isolated. But what was interesting from that shot is noticing how strong the crosswind was. They were in a full echelon shape there. Dan Martin is now closing down on Peter Sagan. So that shows the speed that Dan Martin's going on the climb and how Peter Sagan has just shut it down from the moment he realised that his race was over.
Yeah, this is the first moment where a rider from the peloton has met a rider from the breakaway that started to disintegrate on the long Pic du Nord climb. And Sagan is the first to be caught, indicating that he did just reserve his talents and keep his energy for another day. No, it wasn't a bad day out for him. He's in the breakaway yet again and picking up even more green jersey points. But no stage win for him today. It's going to come from one of these riders.
Now we've got no time gaps to the group of riders behind this. I wonder if they can see them or they're getting news on the radio, because there's a very concerted effort from everybody involved to make sure that nobody comes from behind and joins back into that group. Because as it is, it's slightly manageable, but the more riders there are, obviously the more confusing and the more variables you add.
Well, that's a very good point. They have disappeared out of sight and out of mind at the moment as we look at Carcassonne, which has been decked out in yellow, painted those walls. I was wondering whether, having walked down below them and gazed up and tried to figure out what that logo was, whether or not from the helicopter the perspective might come into view. But it's still pretty abstract, isn't it?
Yeah, there must be a point in the horizon you stand at where it comes into view. They didn't quite anticipate these shots we're seeing.
They are riding hard together.
That must have been brought by Team Sky. Thanks to that 82-hour attack on the descent, that's accelerated everybody. Then Team Sky have piled on the pressure to make sure nobody else attacks, and the person who's lost out most from that is Dan Martin.
Team Sky don't do sentiments, nor should they. They're in the business of winning the Tour de France, and I suppose, as disappointed as Martin will be, having put a lot of effort into getting away and taking that lead all the way up and over the top of the mountain, I suppose the consolation that he has to take from this as they shut him down is it's a sign of respect of how dangerous he might have been if he'd halved his disadvantage in the GC going into the Pyrenees, or worse.
Yeah, and I think for him, on a purely personal level, it will make him feel good about himself, and he'll be filled with confidence going into the rest day and the Pyrenean stages to come, because if he feels that he can dance off the front on a climb like that for, well, almost fun, then that bodes well for this final week of the Tour de France. The wind is a factor. I mean, it's a very strong crosswind here, and that's something we might see having more effect on the Team Sky-led peloton. This group, you can see they get maximum protection because they're big enough, the road's wide enough to make sure everybody's looked after on the wheel. Now, if somebody was to attack and move into the gutter, and at this point that would be moving over to the left-hand side of the road, just going as hard as they can, it would mean that nobody would get any protection from the wind, and that's a prospect that they've just turned into more tail cross, and you can see the way the group's now gone a little bit straighter. But all of that is going to be interesting for the peloton behind, because this is prime crosswind territory.
Exploitable winds, no doubt about it, and very exposed in these plains. No trees, so it has the potential. We won't know for another 13 minutes before the peloton gets to this point, but the very front of the race is now on. That's Magnus Cort Nielsen. If you're trying to differentiate the two of them, That's the man we keep talking about with the fast finish, the Dane, and the other Dane has the yellow specks on there, Michael Valgren. What a year he's had, winning two of the biggest one-day races on the calendar, bar none, in the Amstel Gold Race and the Nieuwsblad. I understand, actually, that he has not been contracted to Astana for the following year, or I don't think that situation has resolved itself yet. If that's the case, a lot of people will be seeking out his signature.
Yeah, he is a hot prospect at the moment, not just because of those victories, but the way he's ridden since a Neo-Pro with CSC first as a loyal domestic to Alberto Contador and all-terrain. Not the highest mountains, but everything else. And he's shown that he is a multifaceted rider. He can do lots of different things. And this year really was a coming of age, even though he's young, to see him win races that people thought he could already now.
Just doing a turn on the front there, Valgren, and then peeling off. Look at that wind. Slovakian flag, it's not going to be their day today. Peter Sagan's not in this group. 10 kilometres to go.
Wow, that wind's terrifying. Let's not forget that the team cars behind that Team Sky peloton they do have these images. So they'll be watching this and they'll be seeing this and they'll be relaying this information to the road captains, telling them make sure you're at the front, or the best scenario here would be to ride aggressively.
Well, there is the selection. From one of these riders, our stage winner will emerge. You could speculate all day long, but in the end, the road is going to decide, and there's 9.5 kilometres of it left. Michael Valgren at the front of the races. They leave that village now, forcing the pace within the last 9 kilometres. That wasn't a full-blooded attack, not just yet, but he looked there, didn't he, David, to see if there was something he could exploit there, and thought the better of it.
Well, that's now set the wheels in motion, because I think the cohesiveness that group had has now evaporated, and it's always that first attack in this final which then sets everything off, and it has now begun.
And they can play these games at the moment. Domenico Pozzovivo, he has to go extremely long and hope that the race unfolds in a way that that goes in his favour. It's hard to see how he might win this race, particularly in the presence of Magnus Cort Nielsen, the man who nobody wants to take to the finish line, who now attacks, and that's perhaps an unexpected tactic. Rafa Majka trying to get onto his wheel, but the sprinter in the field with 8 kilometres to go is trying to time trial his way off.
And look, they're all kind of glued to the left-hand side as they come across to the wind, but Magnus Cort Nielsen, this is where having a teammate is so important, because when you do the 1-2, I know Pozzovivo being distanced, which would have been expected in these conditions, but each one of these pairs of teammates, now Barre and Merida are now down to one rider as he goes. He's got no choice now. He can't play the 1-2 tactic, but Valgren can jump onto his wheel and sit on and say, well, I got Magnus Cort Nielsen behind. Then the next attack go, Magnus Cort Nielsen can follow it and say, well, I got Michael Valgren behind. And that just keeps repeating itself. So the riders with teammates can just keep staying on the wheels. They just have to make sure nobody gets away.
And the first riders in the 8-man group to really be put under pressure, not surprisingly, are the climbers. And it's absolutely no surprise to see Rafa Majka, having been that lone attacker at the higher slopes of the big climb as well, just struggling when it gets really fast at the front.
Balcom Oliver winding up. There he goes.
So each of these teams playing 1-2. It's like a left hook, right hook from both of them. Now Mollema, and that'll work for Skoons. You can see Skoons now looking at all the other riders. Well, I'm not going to chase. My man is on the attack, and then he sits on the wheel of the counter-attack.
See, Magnus Cort Nielsen was on the radio immediately when he got onto Balcom Mollema's wheel, and that's almost a sense you need to trust your teammate implicitly, because if you're going to go and not hesitate, this is all instinct now, you can't think about things. Magnus Cort Nielsen went to now, he's got to believe and be sure that his teammate is going to cover the next move, because if not, the tactic doesn't work. The moment one of your teammates hesitates is when it all goes wrong.
But Valgren looks ominously comfortable on the wheel of Lilian Kamjan, just at the front of that second group. Little gap has opened up. Valgren looks like he's got so much more left. He checks over his right shoulder to see which riders are all there, and they are all there. Mollema's still on the front, doing a huge turn in these difficult conditions as the race route now turns more into a headwind on the running.
Look at Valgren, he's just flicking around left, right, checking people. He's been in control since the very beginning of the stage, and now his job is to mark. So at the moment, it's Magnus Cort Nielsen has he's been handed the race, if you like. Now Valgren just has to mark everything.
And clearly, it's Lilian Calmjan who has to chase, because each one of those riders has a teammate back in this group. So it's either got to be Calmjan or it's got to be Micah who chases. And Micah probably can't chase, won't chase. So Lilian Calmjan has no option but to, he can't do it. He just can't do it. No one's going to help him. No one will help bring Lilian Calmjan back into this battle. So that might be it.
You see the Trek rider as well flicking behind. So the Astana rider and the Trek rider, and there's Astana Valgren on the radio telling him that they covered, that it's shutting down behind. So that was, you can see, look at the Trek rider, they're now bodyguards. They're marking everyone out. They're just psyched them out. So it's like, if you go, we're going to sit in your wheel. You've lost. Crosswind race going on behind. So this is the peloton, what's left of the peloton after that Dan Martin attack. Now look, they're not taking it easy there. This is Team Sky making sure that they're riding an aggressive defensive style of racing. You see it's already getting people are getting dropped to the back. Calmjan goes again, but he knows that he's going to have he's got Valgren just glued to the wheel, and Squinch as well. So at some point you might think that maybe Valgren, if Calmjan drags him away and he's got behind, there's no reason why Valgren doesn't counter-attack or work with him.
He was so frustrated, Lilian Calmjan, the way the race panned out yesterday on the road to Mende. He's got himself in a breakaway today, but once again, he found himself tactically outnumbered in this group, which is ironic, isn't it, for Direct Energie, having had so many numbers in every single breakaway. But there was very little he could do about that when that group went, and maybe if he'd reacted a bit earlier, it's easier to say, but that gap is going to be very difficult for him to close on his own, unless these three start to look at each other and play games. Yeah,
I mean, I think Calmjan, he said afterwards his legs felt great, it just wasn't good enough. And there's a little word there from Bauke Mollema, a little glance to Izagirre. In this sort of situation, you'd almost want to, if you could, just say to Izagirre that if you attack, I won't chase you. And that's just an alliance, a gentleman's agreement to try and beat the better sprinter, and then force Magnus Cort Nielsen to work. Magnus Cort Nielsen tightening up his shoes. His only tactic, normally his guaranteed tactic is the sprint. But at the same time, if he's feeling really good, he could catch them out, because that's what they think he'll be doing, and they'll be cycling up for an attack. But at the moment, Magnus Cort Nielsen, he's perfectly happy for these three to be batting out for the sprints, whereas for Bauke Mollema and Izagirre, in an ideal world, they try and break away beforehand.
Don't forget, Jon Izagirre was second place on the stage to Le Grand Bonnant that was won by Julien Alaphilippe, and he has had an excellent year. Been very, very consistent, particularly in the early part of the year. He's a GC racer, really, in week-long stage races. Fourth on GC in Paris-Nice, third in the Tour of the Basque Country. So it's a high-caliber threesome, but they're very different riders, all with different characteristics. Izagirre and Bauke Mollema. Well, Izagirre much more of a pure climber, Bauke Mollema more of an all-rounder with a good time trial, and Magnus Cort Nielsen, a rider we think of as a sprinter, but as he demonstrated to put himself in this position, he can climb.
Yeah, he was going over the Pic Nord at the front, very front of the race, just going to show the shape he's in today. And that's going to put the fear up these riders. Although it doesn't seem to show that at the moment. As I said, there's a little bit of me that thinks that Trek Segafredo and Bauke Mollema are quite content with the fact they're at the front, at the sharp end of the race, and are being quite pragmatic about the situation.
Bauke Mollema is renowned as one of the most likeable and honest citizens in the entire peloton. Hugely popular rider, and he's making friends in this little group. I think we can safely say that. He is not shirking his work. He's doing his turn, and so too is Magnus Cort Nielsen as well, playing his part and just holding off that chase group and allowing them not to come in.
Just seeing Magnus Cort Nielsen's body language there. He just dropped, just relaxed a little bit. He's now thinking about the sprint. He's now winding up already. So in his head, all he's thinking of now, look, he's in the drops, and it's just, there's something about him. If anybody goes, he's going to go with them. There's going to be no hesitation. Now, so I think he's almost thinking it's too good to be true that they're going to keep riding with him. And that seems to be the case at the moment, that they're going to just keep working with him to the finish.
And doing his turn on the front there motivates them again to carry on.
So not a hesitation, almost matching him pedal for pedal. didn't even think about
Straight on it. Straight on it. Magnus Cort Nielsen onto that big attack from Jon Izagirre. Bauke Mollema already beginning to show signs that he might now. Can he get back on? Mollema is still
ready.
part of this.
Yeah, he's ready. He's just almost wants Mollema to go on. It's like he's just like waiting for them, because this is his tactic now. It's like, I know you're going to attack me. I'll follow you. I'll beat you. And then so Bauke Mollema, if he wants to try and do this, he's got to attack him.
1 kilometre to go. The man in the blue jersey from Astana, the Great Dane, has got everybody in check here in this group of 3. Can he definitively put them in checkmate?
So this is the easiest tactic. When you know you're the best sprinter, control it. Slow it down slightly, sit to the barrier. Look, he's kind of speaking the radio, finding out what Valgren is, finding out what's going on. Keep them to one side of you. So they can only sprint by down his left side. So he only looks over his left shoulder so he can see them coming. He knows that his jump, when he starts to sprint, is much stronger than his. So by controlling the sprint, the aerodynamics aren't so important. Now he goes, look, he's looking at him, waiting. He's like just waiting. Like the moment he comes level, then he'll kick his sprint. They're just keeping them, he's almost taunting them. Look how slow he's going, relatively. Now he's switched to the left-hand side of the barriers, look at his right shoulder. Just waiting for them to go. The moment they start come parallel to him, he'll go. Because then it means they're not on his wheel, so he wants them to come up next to him, then he'll start his sprint.
But at a certain point, if they don't go, he will just leave them for dead. I wonder what that point is.
They have to start. He won't start till they start. Look at this.
The last time we saw this was Degenkolb on stage 9, wasn't it? In a little group, leading the sprint into the finish.
He wants to leave it as long as possible because he knows how much bigger. Because he's a sprinter, his jump is so big that they can't match that. Now watch, sprints to start, go.
And there we go. Izagirre tries, does his best. Magnus Cort Nielsen takes him around this left-handed sweeping bend. Mollema's already beaten Izagirre, not giving up yet. And Magnus Cort Nielsen perhaps opening up his sprint longer than he wanted to, but absolutely no doubt about who had the fastest finish. And that's the fulfillment of all that promise. And now Magnus Cort Nielsen is a winner on the Tour de France, and he made it look so easy. And Michael Valgren has just got the news in his ear that his teammate has delivered on that excellent showing from Astana. That's 2 wins in 2 for the team, by the way, having taken the victory on Mons for Omar Freile. And Magnus Cort Nielsen owes his victory in no small measure to the work being done by his Danish teammate and compatriot here, Michael Valgren.
He doesn't know yet.
Yeah, he won.
He won. No, he doesn't know yet. He's checking. He doesn't know that he's won.
He made the assumption, I think we all made the assumption some time ago, that Magnus Cort Nielsen would ride to victory in that group. And Rafa Majka is the last in that group to come across the line, having put down a brave attack on the final climb of the day. But this guy has got the potential, hasn't he, to turn into a mini Peter, well, a taller version of Peter Sagan. He is a bit of a cannibal on the evidence that we've seen today.
Well, we'll get to the written evidence of the stage result in a moment, but 2 minutes 30 behind Cort Nielsen's excellent win. There was a crash as the remains of the day's break hit the final corner. Mitchelton Scott's Damien Howson in yellow and black seemed to go down first, but Dimension Data's Serge Pauwels in the green helmet went down hardest. Everyone got up and finished, but Pauwels suffered a broken elbow and he's out. Here's the stage result then. Jon Izagirre was given the same time as the winner, Cort Nielsen. There was a 2-second gap to Bauke Mollema. Michael Valgren was first of the survivors of the day's break. Nikias Arndt and Julien Bernard led in the group that suffered the crash. Well, they have Jakob Fuglsang lying 9th overall, Astana, but clearly think stage wins have more value than dedicating all their resources to a top 10 place, and the result is victories on consecutive days.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's what I've been dreaming of even before I started riding a bike. It's my first year here at the Tour, and yeah, I'm so happy to take a victory, and I have to thank my team a lot for giving me this chance and really believing in me, and especially also Michael in the final.
Yeah, because it was a perfect strategy today. You were up front in that breakaway group with Valgren. It was all perfect.
Yeah, it really was perfect, and my sports directors has a big belief in me. They were the ones that came with this tactic from many days ago. They already said that this was the stage for me, and that I should go out in the break with Valgren, and everything worked out perfectly, and I'm so happy.
The main field rolled in 13 minutes behind the winner, an improvement on yesterday's 18 minutes. And unlike yesterday, the day's second race had no effect on the GC despite the best efforts of Dan Martin.
Dan, you've talked quite a lot in the last few weeks about having fun on the bike. Is that what that was all about?
Yeah, I think yesterday was kind of that reset button again, you know. It was like, just go out and enjoy it. And I got a bit bored on the climb. It looked like a lot of Jumbo and Sky were content just to ride really, really slow up the climb. So I thought, why not make it, see how far they'll let me go.
Were you hoping that someone would come with you, or that you'd maybe pick up some stragglers from the breakaway?
I was hoping the TV motorbike would give me some helping hand, you know, but obviously when you're alone in front, it stays behind you, and the peloton's got it in front of them, you know, and that's what happened on the downhill. It was just it's an impossible thing to get around, you know. It's obviously the television needs to see the front of the peloton, but you know, when it's a downhill like that, I actually expected the downhill to be a lot more downhill as well. So you had to pedal the whole way, and when I saw that, it was like fighting a losing battle, you know.
Peter Sagan missed out on making the green jersey a mathematical certainty before the rest day. Still, with a lead of 282 points, it's a certainty nonetheless.
Peter, congratulations. This is your 100th day in the green jersey, so that's pretty nice. What do you think of that?
Oh, well. And I hope it's going to be more. Thank you.
Geraint Thomas isn't threatening any records for number of days in the yellow jersey, but he is a proper threat to win the race now, having reached the second rest day in it. No change at the top from this morning. He still has a minute 39 over Chris Froome and 1:50 on Tom Dumoulin. Those are the podium places as things stand. Primož Roglic is the closest man to upsetting that order. No upsets today, though, for the team of the race leader and the defending champion.
Yeah, it was obviously a chaotic first hour, you know, everyone trying to get in the break, and it was quite hard roads and a bit of wind, so it was quite stressful, but the guys controlled it really well, and then there was the right break for us, so we were happy with that. But then obviously Dan went on the last climb of the day. I knew it was a long way to go, you know, 40k on his own was a big ask, but yeah, and then Bardet tried on the descent, but we were always in control. And then obviously the wind in the last 15k, but it wasn't enough to do anything, but it was just a bit of stress anyway. But a good day to get them.